Hello everyone, welcome to Big Data Factor. I am Pranit and I have over 4+ years of experience working as a data engineer. If this is your first time visiting this channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content on big data and real world insights. In this video, I am going to walk you through a real data engineering interview experience that I had faced it with Rakuten when I have around 2.5 years of experience. These questions were about SQL, Spark, DataFrame transformations, string functions, conditional logic, and window functions. And here is something important. The interviewer didn't ask all of these as completely separate questions. In several places, the interviewer started with one question and then asked follow-up questions based on the same scenario. So I will keep the exact flow in this video. I will tell you how many questions are coming in each scenario and we will go through them one by one. Let's start with the SQL round. There is one main question in this scenario. We have two tables. The first one is the product table and the second one is the transaction table. The question is, the interviewer asked me to find out total transaction amount for each product group and order the result by total amount in descending order. So here I used a join followed by aggregation. First, we join the two tables using the product ID. This gives us the group corresponding to every transaction. For Tata, Nexon has two transactions of 8 each and Punch has one transaction of 6. So total will become 22. For Maruti, Desire has two transactions of 4 each. It will become 8. Therefore, here is the result. The interviewer was basically checking whether I was comfortable with the combination of join, group by, sum, and order by. And that was the first scenario. Now let's move from SQL to Spark. This section has 3 small questions. The interviewer gave me a product data frame containing ID, name, group, unit sold, and date. The questions were around aggregation, filtering, and string manipulation. The first question here is, using Spark, calculate the average units sold for each group. So here, I first grouped the data by group. Then I applied the average aggregation on units sold. So the flow is simply group by, aggregate, and result. One production level point here is that because we are reading a CSV, I would make sure unit sold is actually numeric column before calculating the average. The next question was, filter the data where the group is either Tata or Maruti. The keyword in the requirement is either. We want Tata or Maruti, not Tata and Maruti. A row cannot have both values in the same group column. That's why isin works nicely here. The interviewer then gave me a string column and asked me to extract the first 6 characters. The important thing to remember is that Spark substring starts from position 1. So substring of column 1,6 means start at position 1 and take 6 characters. So within this one Spark section, the interviewer tested 3 things: aggregation, filtering, string manipulation. Now the next question was a little more practical: string splitting. Suppose the column has A-B-C. The interviewer asked me to split this into 3 separate columns. So here I used the split function. The split function breaks the string based on the delimiter. Here the delimiter is hyphen. So A-B-C becomes A-B-C. So that's how we extract the each individual value. This was a short question, but it was testing whether I know how to work with array of string functions in Spark. Now the interviewer moved into a scenario involving employee salaries. This scenario has 2 questions. The interviewer gave employee salary data and defined 4 salary brackets. So the first question is, create a new column based on the salary range. The important part here isn't just writing the when conditions. It's handling the boundaries correctly. For example, if the salary is exactly 10, which bracket should it go into? That is why we explicitly define the first bracket in greater than 5 and less than or equal to 10. The second bracket greater than 10 and less than or equal to 20. The third bracket greater than 20 and less than or equal to 35. The fourth bracket greater than 35 and less than or equal to 50. This avoids gaps and overlapping ranges. The second question here is, find what percentage of employees belong to each salary bracket. This is a follow-up question because we are using the bracket column we just created. So here, first I get the total number of employees. Then I counted employees in each bracket. Finally, I used percentage to get the percentage. For example, if there are 100 employees, and 25 of them are belong to bracket A, we get the percentage as 25%. The important thing here is that the interviewer is now checking whether I can build one transformation on top of another, rather than just answering isolated Spark syntax questions. Now let's move to the employee data scenario. This scenario has two questions. The input CSV contain ID, name, department, salary, joining date, appraisal date. So the first question the interviewer asked it, how would you handle null values in this data frame? If the requirement is to remove containing null values, we can use drop NA. Drop NA removes rows containing null values. But in a production pipeline, I wouldn't blindly remove every row containing a null. I would first understand whether the column is mandatory. For example, if appraisal date can legitimately be null for employees who haven't received an appraisal yet, dropping those records could cause data loss. So the right answer depends on the business requirement. The next question was, the joining date is in DD, MM, YY format. Calculate the employee tenure. I would first convert the string into a proper date format and then calculate the difference from the current date. A common mistake would be to simply subtract the joining year from the current year, but that doesn't always give the correct completed tenure. For example, someone who joined in December hasn't completed the same number of years as someone who joined in January of the same year. So for date calculations, it's better to use Spark's built-in date functions. And finally, the interviewer moved to one of the most common data engineering interview topics, window functions. Here, the question says, for every employee, find the top two appraisal records based on latest appraisal date, and if the date is the same, higher salary comes first. So here, I would create a window partition by employee ID and ordered by appraisal date and salary. So first, partition by ID means every employee gets their own ranking. Then appraisal date descending puts the latest appraisal first, and latter salary descending acts as the tiebreaker when two appraisal records have the same data. Finally, dense ranks assign the ranking, and we keep rank less than or equal to 2 to get the top 2. There is something I would be prepared for if the interviewer asks why dense rank. I would answer there are three common functions: row number, rank, dense rank. Row number gives row a unique number, whereas rank gives tied rows the same rank but can skip the numbers. And finally, dense rank gives tied rows the same rank without skipping numbers. So if the interviewer specifically wants exactly two rows, row number may be even more appropriate. But if the requirement is based on ranking and ties should be preserved, dense rank can be used. So this was the complete interview flow, and notice that the interviewer wasn't just asking random questions. The interview started with SQL join and aggregation, then moved into Spark DataFrame operations, then string manipulation, then conditional logic and percentages, then data cleaning and data calculations, and finally window functions. The important lesson for me from this interview was that at around 2.5 years of experience, knowing the syntax alone isn't enough. The interviewer can start with a simple question and then build follow-up questions on top of your answer. So when you're preparing for interviews, don't just prepare individual questions. Take one scenario and ask yourself, what follow-up question can the interviewer ask based on my answer? That's where the real interview preparation starts. Comment interview if you want more such real interview experiences. If this helped, drop a like and subscribe to Big Data Factory. This is all for today. We will meet you in the next video. Till then, keep learning and keep building. Bye bye.